Are you curious about Gestalt language processing? You are not alone. Join me, Corinne Smoose, and speech therapy PD for our podcast, The Gestalt Get Together. Our episodes try to balance the enthusiasm and excitement about GLP and its associated intervention ideas, as well as a healthy dose of skepticism about how to understand and integrate this paradigm shift into your career and the field at large. We hope that you can get together with us to learn more about Gestalts.
Welcome to the Speech Link. I'm your host, Shar Beauchart, and I invite you to listen and learn practical strategies from experienced experts to take your therapy to the next level. Okay, everybody. Well, before we start, we do need to do disclosures. And the disclosure basically regarding financial disclosure, Rachel Arntson is the owner and creator of all the Talk-It Rocket Productions, formerly known as Kids Train, and receives compensation for products sold, including her music and music sets and the We Can Talk book and the Blast Off board sound sequencing set. And also she receives an honorarium for this podcast. I do too receive an honorarium for the Speech Link, and I'm a presenter for speechtherapypd.com and receive royalty payments. All of these are disclosures. And I own Speech Dynamics, Inc. Regarding non-financial disclosures, we have none. So there we have it. I would like to welcome everybody here to our Speech Link podcast, sponsored, of course, by speechtherapypd.com. And I'm Shar Beauchart, your speech language pathologist host, and I'm so very glad that you're here for our very practical podcast. And it's called Integrate Music in Fun and Functional Ways to Enrich Speech and Language Abilities. And you are very welcome to participate. I've got my chat up, and just type your question or comment into the chat, and one of us will read it, and our guest will respond. Now, here's a little bit about our guest. Rachel Arntson, MS, CCC-SLP, has been a speech-language pathologist in the greater Minneapolis, Minnesota area since 1980. And she's worked in the hospital setting, a pediatric clinic, and in early intervention. Also, from 1991 to 2015, she provided family-centered speech and language intervention to infants and toddlers in their homes in the ASIO. Did I say that right? ASIO? ASIO, thank you, school district in Maple Grove, Minnesota. And since retiring from the schools, Rachel has focused on developing new therapy products and building her company, talkitrocket.com. And she has also presented numerous seminars and worked in private practice with her clients. She is the creator of all the Talk-It Rocket materials. And if you go to her website, talkitrocket.com, you will see her materials. And there's a lot of them. I've been scanning through today. And you'll see, including 10 critically acclaimed song and movie sets. I need to find more out about that. The We Can Talk parent training book, the Blast Off board sound sequencing set, the push-pull puzzle, and the animation station videos for speech and language learning. And her passion for music and fun is reflected in both her products and presentations, and no doubt for tonight on our podcast. And I do love learning about creative, effective ways to implement therapy. So welcome to the Speech Link, Rachel.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes.
This is my first podcast ever, so we'll see how it goes.
Oh, well, good.
Yes.
This is the beginning of something great, no doubt for you. Another thing to do to add to your
my list.
To your list of things. Yeah. Now, to begin, Rachel, and I thought about this, and I bet a lot of us, me included, have thought about or maybe toyed around with using music in therapy. But, I look at you and your website, I have it up right here. You have done it big time.
Yeah.
So my question is, when did you start incorporating music into your therapy and why?
Yep.
And basically, how did all of this come about?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. It became my out of control hobby is what it became. But it started 21 years ago. And it was really, I've loved music my entire life. And certainly I would sing The Wheels on the Bus Go Round and Round and Five Little Monkeys Jumping on the Bed, the typical Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, all of that with young kids in preschool. But I never really thought of it as a direct speech and language tool. But I really had an aha moment, and this was probably about 22 years ago, where I would work with kids that were at a nonverbal level or maybe a vowel level, maybe had 5 vocabulary words, maybe was just at a consonant vowel level, needed verbal practice. And I would notice, like when I would see kids in preschool groups or even at home in home visits, that the kids were not singing. So when you think of the wheels on the bus go round and round, it's a 9-word sentence.
Yeah.
And my kids are at a vowel level. So of course, they're not going to be able to sing. And music, I've known, is a powerful tool. I had known this for years. And it's great for gestural, fine motor imitation, gross motor movement, but I just didn't have songs that would help kids with verbal imitation, direct verbal output for kids. So I went on this journey to see if I could find songs that fulfilled that verbal need for practice with my students. And this was before the internet even became a big deal. And I just couldn't find anything. So because of my musical background, I decided that I'd just write my own. So I looked at each one of my students. I thought, okay, what does this kid need? Little Jacob needs final consonants because he deletes final consonants. Little Lauren she was just at simple sound imitation, any sort of verbal output at all. Oh, Noah was into puppies. So I just looked at all of the kids that I had, what their needs were and what their interests were. And from that, I just started writing songs. So then, because Birth to 3 or early intervention is housed under the school districts in Minnesota. So I wrote a grant to get permission to write and, record, write, and create a CD of songs for speech practice. Cool. And I won that grant. So I recorded this. I looked just today, it was in 2001. I had this first CD, and it was even a cassette tape. It was a long time ago.
Sure.
And it was really popular in the school district where it worked, and preschool groups were using it. People were using it in home visits, used it for home practice and all sorts of things. And then other school districts started hearing about it. And so then I thought, well, maybe I should re-record these songs and create a company. So that's where Kids Express Train came about, which was kids, training kids to express themselves. So from there became my out of control hobby. So, this was that first set.
Okay.
This was the second set. And they're like 2 CDs. They're USBs, flash drives, or downloads now, but they were 2 CDs, 2 CDs, 2 CDs, 2 Spanish CDs, and one CD with some animal face posters. So that's what happened.
Okay. Wow. So had you written songs prior to that?
I had written songs through my church. So it was more church type songs.
Sure.
But really no kid songs. No, It was really seeing the need that kids on my caseload, that I wanted to create something that they could practice and that I knew would probably be good for other kids also. And so that's what happened.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. I love that. I absolutely love that. Boy, I have a million questions here. Yeah, I really do, because you have branched out, over this 22 years.
Yes.
And I'm sure, maybe you have revised some of the songs or added to, created other products. And I know that you have the puzzle or the one where you poke it out. I was watching that video today. And so you expanded. But okay. So the ones that you showed us are really more for either very young children that are just having difficulty developing, or you have older children that just have not developed, and hopefully maybe we can give them a little kickstart. Is it applicable to a full range, or is it just for your earlier intervention and maybe even your preschool?
Yeah, that's a good question. I originally wrote these songs with 2 and 3-year-olds in mind.
Okay.
But having said that, I also like to write songs that give practice, like it might be at a vowel level, but then it also has words in it. It also has phrases in it. So it challenges kids so you can use them in like a regular preschool group. I also have had lots of speech language pathologists that have said they use it even with early elementary age kids. I've had kids or other SLPs that say they've used it even with older students. Like, for example, my rock and roll with the language goal are rock and roll tunes that I got permission to rewrite the lyrics to. And those tend to be a little bit higher level and are good for even some older kids, maybe cognitively impaired kids. But yeah, it's not intended for high school age or, even older elementary. It's for younger kids. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, we're going to kind of just, I'm hoping, sort of systematically go through here. So we have kind of a sense, you've written a lot of songs, and I know that you've done some videos, but let's stay with the songs for a while.
Yes. Yep.
So as you write a song, or I'm going to say maybe even as we use the songs in our therapy, what are the components? So one, what are the components of the songs? And then also, how do we incorporate it? Like, do you just play the whole song through and you sing it and you do the gestures, and then you start with maybe just the first part of it or the first verse or something? And like, how do you ease into that? So the components of your song, and then like, how do we actually apply it in our therapy?
Right. That's a huge
question. Because there's so many kids out there, so many different levels and capabilities and situations. And I know. So just, give us your top 3 favorites.
Right. Well, songs can be used in a variety of ways for a variety of different reasons. So, but originally my first plan, and so that's what I'll address a little bit right now when I talk about components of a song. Okay. I wrote songs originally for kids that needed verbal practice, because originally the songs were just too complex for my kids. So think, as I talk for the next few minutes, think of that as the component piece of this.
Okay, makes sense.
And my motto is, sing a simple song that kids can simply sing. So sing a simple song that kids can simply sing.
I love that.
And so if a child is at a vowel level, let's say he just goes, to communicate.
Sure. Let's
start with a song that is simple enough for that child to participate with their parent or with a teacher or SLP or whatever. Here's an example. I had a parent who I would give my songs as loaners for that kiddo. But the dad, the next day, he was this accountant type dad, business-like, awesome father, but very business-like. And I came into the house and he said, Ben and I learned a new song and we want to sing it to you today. And I said, oh, that's great. But Ben he didn't have any words. He just had kind of an sound.
Sure.
So this dad looks at Ben and he says, okay, Ben, you start. And I'm like, wow, how can Ben even start? He's nonverbal. Yeah. So Ben started and he sang a simple sound that he could simply sing. And he goes, And then dad goes, staying alive, staying alive, staying alive, staying alive. And it was so adorable, so interactive.
That is just the cutest.
And the dad is just beaming, and Ben is just interactive and smiling and looking at his father. I mean, so there were so many speech therapy components that were in that simple song that he could simply sing.
Yeah, so, and that's a Bee Gees song for people that don't know,
Bee Gees
right?
Song, Staying Alive. Yes, yeah. It's what you're supposed to sing. Yeah, it's what you're supposed to sing when you're giving CPR to somebody who's in cardiac arrest.
Right,
but
right.
In this particular case, it was great.
Yeah. So, I love that.
That's the first component, is to really look at your kiddos and think, okay, what does he need to practice? What does she need for stimulation? And like for all my song sets, I've created this chart that says, if your kids need vowels, use these songs. If your kid needs practice with this, use this song. If your kid if you want a theme song about animals, use these songs. So I've thought through quite a bit of that.
Yeah.
Another thing is that we typically sing too rapidly for kids. So if you're singing a song, just slow it down. We typically sing too high or too low in pitch. So this is a boom whacker, and you press it. Let's see. Can you hear that pitch? La, la, la. That's the key of D. So the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout, which is so high for me.
Yeah, that's too high for me.
Oh, gosh. But that's a typical pitch for kids, and it's a good pitch for kids. So you don't need a harmonica or a boom whacker to figure this out. But just keep in your mind that you need to keep the pitch as high as you can do so it matches. Okay. If you want kids to imitate, try to keep it at a pitch that they can actually imitate. That's not the essential part. It's the verbal piece, but it does help kids. So
sure,
that's another piece.
Good.
Core words. So I would write the puppy song for Noah and, other songs, the bubbles, if a kid loves bubbles. So really ask parents, ask teachers what is interesting, and also look at 50 words lists. What are the typical first words for kids, and start focusing on those words with songs. Another thing I love to do is chains of 3. So rock and roll, she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's chains of 3 constantly. Ba 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 Burhan. Their chains of 3 is enticing. I also think if you produce words in chains of 3, it kind of gets kids ready for 2-word phrases. So if I say baby blowing bubbles, 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 baby blowing bubbles, up, up, up. And if all kids can just do this, or they can say, whatever. It gets kids motor sequencing, vowel plus vowel plus vowel, vowel consonant plus vowel consonant plus vowel consonant. So it gets kids ready for that motor sequencing. So that's another piece.
Love it.
Songs, when you're using gestural cues, like the wheels on the bus go round and round. This is a difficult motor movement. And then the complexity of the phrase also makes it impossible for most of my students to actually produce something verbally. So something like up, up, up is much more enticing, and it's easier for kids to not only gesture, but also combine gesture with vocalization. So be very aware that gestures, finger plays should be simple enough so that entices the verbal and not detracts from the verbal.
There you go. Okay.
When I write songs, I also include verbal imitations for kids. So I have adults and kids taking verbal turns. You can listen to song samples on my website of all of my songs. So you can adapt them a little bit if you want to. You can certainly purchase my songs, of course, if you want to. But you will hear adults saying, baby, your turn. And then little kids saying, baby, bubbles, your turn, bubbles, up, 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 your turn, up, up, up. So kids and parents and kids and adults singing back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah.
I love props, but I don't like to use props if it, again, detracts from verbalization. Something like a shaker that you can put right up to your face, that might encourage kids to verbalize. A tube, like this, that echoes the sound, like a toilet paper roll, something like that works great. Also, I believe in using actual objects, like the puppy song. If every kid in your group had a puppy, that's what I would do. But I also include visuals. So with all of my songs, I've written or drawn visuals. This is the song request sheet. So this, I actually, with a classroom of kids with autism, I think they were kindergarten age, the teacher had this enlarged, and there were two nonverbal kids that one wanted the puppy song and one wanted the monkey song, and they were having a song request sheet argument, and the kid would take off the puppy picture and she would put the monkey picture on. So anyway, song request sheets, visuals are so important. Visuals like this with the baby blowing bubbles song.
Yes. Aww.
Or this, that's more like a book size where you can print them out. You get files of my pictures. But this is also simple song sheets. So if you're doing a group session or something, you can have kids follow along. Or even an individual session, you can do it for that.
Wow.
So, but finally, when you talk about doing songs, think about ways to not only just do the song, but how are you going to incorporate that into a functional routine? So if you're doing baby blowing bubbles, how are you going to do an activity with bubbles? How could you change the song maybe to teach the child his name? So you would say, Johnny's blowing bubbles, bubbles, bubbles. Johnny's blowing bubbles. Now who will blow bubbles? And then Annie's blowing bubbles, or Annie's popping bubbles, popping, pop. Annie's popping bubbles, pop, pop, pop. So you can change the song. You don't have to use the recorded music during therapy sessions, especially during individual therapy sessions. I found it that you really didn't have to do that. You could do it a cappella. I love using my song sets for parents to use in home practice. And they were huge for kids' improvement for home practice. Now, if for those of you who are listening, you can give parents or any of your clients a coupon code called SONGS50. So SONGS 50. And your parents can get 50% off any of my song sets. And that I'll have that coupon code for forever. So
cool. Yeah. I love that. And it's Talk It, Rock It. IT on both. .com. Talk It, Rock It.
That's correct.
.com, not rocket, like
not shooting rocket.
Not shooting rocket. I know that's on your logo, and that's a sound, similar.
Yep.
But Talk It, Rock It.
Yes.
.com.
Yes.
Yeah. Love your website.
I can talk about, well, do you have questions about that, Shar? Or I can also talk about the other reasons, not just verbal output, but other reasons to use music. So it's
yes, please. Yeah.
Okay.
Move into that, because the verbal is just, it makes so much sense. And so many of us, can use that. And that obviously is a really fun way to engage the child and then to carry it over into home. And so one question, do you usually have the parent, or would you recommend that the parent is there in the therapy session, or maybe bring them in later and you two do the song together? Or how did you kind of handle that?
Well, I did early intervention in families' homes.
In the home.
Yeah.
So they were there.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer in routines-based intervention and do seminars on that. So yes, the parent was always there with me. But even when I worked in a pediatric clinic, I always had parents with me. It's just a part of who I am. So if you're working with preschool groups or preschool kids, that's a different scenario. But certainly I would want to meet the teachers' aides, the teachers, and see how they could incorporate music during their routines of the day.
Yes,
also.
Good idea.
Are you taking advantage of our new handy feature, the certificate tracker? Keep a record of all your CEUs, not just for any of the 750 audio and video courses here at speechtherapypd.com, but from anywhere. Upload your certificates and voila, you have an organized, all-in-one-place record of all your CEUs. Cool.
Yeah, well, and then, it might be kind of fun for the parent to, if they could show up once in a while, maybe once a month or something, and watch what's going on, and then send them to your website. And I'm not trying to make sales or whatever, but if you have a parent that is not able to come all the time, they could, get some of the songs and do them at home. Or I'm wondering, would it be, could we do maybe a little quick video of the therapist and the child doing it, or is that not good? I mean,
well, this is what I've
copyright laws and stuff,
Right. I can never give people permission to actually copy the songs, but this is what I've told people to do. Well, for sure, you get the files of songs, the pictures, and by all means, you can print those to your heart's content, give them to all your students. And then I have encouraged families to video record their child with you doing the video and send that home. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And
that's what I was talking about.
That's a great way to do it anyway.
That's a teaching tool. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And the kid would love to watch, himself
to watch,
or whatever.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. To see themselves, look at me. I'm on the iPad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And, again, to bring up Shar, these are my songs. I have permission, of course, because I wrote them to talk about those songs. But that does not mean that my songs are the end all be all. I encourage people to write their own, to look for songs that fit what they need for their students. But I've also done a lot of thinking about it, whether a kid has autism, has apraxia, has a cleft palate. I mean, the whole gamut. I've pretty much thought of every scenario. So when you can use songs.
Yes,
and I can talk about some of those times where if you'd like.
Please do. And yes, move us along.
Okay. So, the verbal imitation I've talked about, but also kids who have difficulty transitioning or difficulty with attention or regulation, dysregulated kids. Kids really cannot learn unless they're regulated. And I have found music, especially in birth to 3, of huge value for those types of situations, especially kids with autism. How do you get them through a daily routine? For one of my students, he wasn't autistic, but diaper changing time was a nightmare. So for kids, I like using songs or finger plays or whatever, because you can use gestures, so you can give kids a job to do. And it's predictable. The song has a very clear beginning, middle, and end, so that the kids know that when the song is done, this activity, this daily routine is also done. So I would do something like, I gave this little guy this was his job during diaper time, so the mom could do her business and move on.
Yeah.
And it was the hippo song. This is not one that I wrote. I don't know who the writer of it is, so I can't give credit, but it's worth teaching people. It goes like this. A hippopotamus. He climbed into the bus. And all the children on the bus said, "You're squishing me." That's it. And it's so ridiculous, but kids love it. They stay attentive. They stay regulated. So that's one I would have parents practice. Or you can do to the tune, the Mexican hat dance, and do body parts like my eyes, my nose, my hair, my toes, and do it again. So you could do something like that also. You could also just make up a song to some familiar tune about diaper changing. Jacob's holding the diaper, Jacob's holding the diaper, Jacob's holding the diaper, yeah. And use that chains of 3 to see if you can get him to move or to, verbally say something. So transitions. All done, diapers, all done, cha-cha-cha, or all done, playing, all done, cha-cha-cha. That's one song on, that's on Drills for Sounds.
Okay.
That has consonant vowel practice as well. So that's, I've written social stories for kids too, putting a social story to music. So I've written the dentist day. Oh, what's the other one? The haircut day, wash hands, where it's a social story that pulls them through that routine. Getting kids ready for a stressful situation. It's great to use music for that. So that's one piece. A little bit then the verbal practice, I'll just add a couple things. So the vowel song, that's, in my Drills for Sounds, just awesome for sound blending of vowel plus vowel. Then the new BMW, I taught this to a parent I remember very specifically, again, another dad. and I gave them the loaner of my songs. So they listened to it, but then the dad said, we kind of made up our own version, so it's just, I say, ba, 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 your turn, ba, ba, ba. I say, bo, 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 your turn, bo, 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 and so on. And so the dad made up his own, I say, it might be D, 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 or whatever he wanted. He kind of knew what little his son needed for practice, and he adapted it according to his needs. So give the songs as loaners, but you encourage the parents to go beyond that. So anyway, I have songs for vowels, for consonant vowels, for final consonants, for 2-word phrases, for all sorts of things.
Okay, so you sort of just went into the language piece.
Yes, then there's receptive language and expressive language. So something like verbal directions. My puppy song is great for working on consonant vowel puppy, but it's also, if you give kids a stuffed animal puppy, it works on verbs, action verbs. So my puppy can jump, and he can run, and he can walk, and he can talk. He says woof, woof. So it helps kids receptively understand action words. So that's just one example. I have lots of action songs, but that's just an example. Then also helping kids understand questions. I have found that music can help kids with just understanding the rote task of answering a question. Like, what's that? It's a ball. What's that? It's a ball. What's that? It's a ball. Yes, it is a ball. So that's my What's That song. And What's That's repeated 36 times. And that's focused language stimulation, a technique that we all SLPs, we use all the time in our work to focus vocabulary and repeat that certain goal several times in a play scheme, in a book, whatever, but you can do it in songs really, really well. So I have taught the kids the task of what happened, what's that, through a song, and then have them carry that skill over into the real world of answering other types of questions, in particular, like what's that? So it starts with a rote skill, but it ends up being carried over.
Okay. So a couple of things here. And before I jump in and ask my question, and I hope I remember it. Okay. There is a good question here by Jennifer in the chat. And she says, how did you handle it when a parent did not want to sing too? So if the parent was hesitant to participate.
Yeah. First and foremost with early intervention is always to meet the parent where they are. And if music is totally not their thing, I would not push it. Yeah. But then sometimes with some parents, they don't want to sing, but half of my songs are not singing songs. They are spoken. I call it 67-year-old Norwegian Lutheran rap music, where it's just verbal repetition. And some parents are a little bit more, better with that. Also, other kids are sometimes better. They don't want anything to do with music, and they prefer the spoken types of finger plays and things. So I don't push it, but usually, again, my songs are not the end all be all. I would start with any parent and say, is music a part of your life at all? I had a family that was a Hmong family from Laos, and I asked them about music, and they went and got the grandpa who played an instrument. And so we had this connection about music, but I never pushed my songs on that family. Instead, I would encourage whatever they're playing or whatever they're listening to. I had a parent say, I listened to Metallica, but, little Johnny couldn't sing along to Metallica. So I said, just simplify the song and do vowel sounds or whatever. So, sometimes it's not for every family, and that's okay. It's totally okay.
Sure.
But it's important, I think, that we tell parents music, and this is one component of why I use music, is pre-literacy. I mean, let's face it, when we work with young kids, our goal is to get them ready for school, to get them ready for learning so that they can be successful in school. And part of that is pre-literacy. So I teach parents about the importance of rhyming, of using rhythm, of keeping the beat. There are studies that say keeping the beat is an important precursor to reading because it teaches syllabication, how many syllables there are in words, which is part of pre-literacy.
Phonological, right.
Yep. Alliteration, what better way to teach kids baby blowing bubbles, that beginning P sounds, beginning B sounds, beginning M sounds, when it's put in a song. That understanding of alliteration is also a precursor to reading. So I can usually get parents to buy into maybe music. You have to tell them why it's important. You can't just tell them how to do it or what to do, but you have to tell them why it's important. And then they're more likely to buy into it. Every parent wants their kid to be successful in school. So that's my answer to that question.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's a great question.
Good. Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Yep.
Thank you for your question, Jennifer.
Want graduate level semester credits for your speechtherapypd.com courses? Well, they're available now in collaboration with the University of the Pacific. And as you know, most of our 750 plus video and audio courses are evidence-based and all are super practical. Subscribe now.
Okay. My question is, we're doing the songs and we're working on maybe WH, maybe 2-word repetitions, and it's fun. And then, so would you use your song as maybe at the beginning of the session, and then you come along and you do maybe a story, or you do, some activities, and you're looking at pictures and whatever. And then maybe you wrap up with it at the end, or, because you're not going to sing especially if you're in the schools, you're not going to sing for 30 minutes.
No.
And so,
yes, I don't think you should. I mean, when I've done thousands of seminars, and I always tell people, music might be 10% of what I do in a therapy session.
Okay.
I might do one song. I might not do any songs whatsoever. But again, I do birth to 3. I do early intervention. So I take parents. That's a whole nother seminar to talk about what I do in an early intervention. Music is only a small part of that, but it is hugely important. I think it's more important to get parents set up with songs that they can do when I'm not there than it is for me to do a song during a therapy session. I walk into a therapy session, I say, how was your week? And they'll say, oh God, eating time was just a nightmare. And I'll say, well, let's talk about mealtime then. How can we get through mealtime? Now that might be music. It might include some songs, but it might not at all. So I always go with where the parent is concerned or successful or whatever. Before I really structure, first we do a song, then we do this. That's not how therapy works for me in a home session.
In the home. Okay.
But it would
if you're
be
in the
maybe
schools,
in a preschool or a school.
Right.
Yep, whether it's individual or therapy. Yeah. I would probably always do like my bye song at the end of the day. That works well because it repeats bye, 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 bye 73 times in a 2-minute song. The word bye is repeated.
It's a lot of byes.
That's a lot of byes. And it works on 2-word phrases. So it's this back and forth of 2-word phrases. And it teaches kids to just say bye at the end of the day. So that's a great song to end with kids. The hi song is a great song to begin. That's a 2-word phrase song as well. And then let's say if a child is apraxic, I would, and he's at the consonant vowel level, I would do the new BMW song, or I would do my horsey song, or I would do, I'm drawing a blank, but there's a whole ton of them for that.
Yeah.
So I would maybe, and I might not do the whole song, but I would always print out the sheet for the kiddo so he could take it home and they could practice it that way. So did I answer your question? I don't. Okay.
You did. And I'm thinking, because, when I was in the schools and I had kindergarten, first grade kids, and they're talking up a storm, but you can't understand a word they're saying.
Right.
And some of them are just verbal and they just move right on through life.
Right.
And other kids don't want to say anything. And so I'm thinking, especially the kids that are just shyer, or that they realize that they are not communicating effectively with other people. I could even see doing some of these, especially with the sounds that are easier that they can do, to get them going.
Yep.
Another thing. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I can show you one thing that I pretty consistently did with every family if they're at beginning stages of imitation. And that was these animal face posters that I created. I originally drew them like this, I just made my own. And then again, it becomes this out of control hobby, and I created it for other people to purchase. But it goes to the tune, 99 bottles of pop on the wall, it goes to that tune. But it's, who is the puppy today? And what does the puppy say? Woof, woof, your turn. And then you go back and forth. And so sometimes with kids who aren't yet verbally imitating, they don't know what their job is. I'm really a big proponent of kids need to know their job.
I think you're right.
So this helps kids to know that this is Rachel's verbal turn and now it's your verbal turn. So back and forth, just having this, it's like a talking stick that you might need to use for people who monopolize conversations, So it goes, there are 12 different
cute
pictures that I would use, but that song is really helpful for kids. And I'm not a proponent of taking a lot of like toys and things into a home for early intervention, but I do it sometimes if it has a very clear purpose, and I can talk at length about that. But this, I would give parents loaners for these as well, or you can cut them out of a paper plate, for goodness sake, and give it to them, teach them that song for that kind of verbal practice. So anyway. Yep.
Okay, good. So are those cutouts or whatever on your website? Can we buy those?
Yep.
What are they called?
They're called animal face posters.
Okay.
They also go with this set. It's set 5. So if you bought that set, it would automatically come with those posters.
Okay.
But you
I know this sounds like a really big commercial.
Yeah,
but I don't mean it to be.
About that.
I know. Yeah.
I don't want to come across that way.
I know. I don't either.
My dilemma. It's always a dilemma when you are a creator of things that have worked for lots of people. But tooting your own horn is very difficult for me. And I'm sure you find the same thing. So, but I can't be something I'm not. I can't talk about Stephen Gregg songs. I don't know Stephen Gregg songs, so I have to talk about these.
Yeah, well, they're good. That makes sense.
Yeah.
In the schools, we've got the paperwork thing. Yep. And we've got goals and that kind of thing. Do you see this as your methodology? And then you have the goals of the child will be able to, do consonant vowel and you name them or whatever, or do the WH2 word, whatever, fill in the blank. So the goal thing is just regular, normal, what you would normally do. But this is your methodology to get there, or at least one of the tasks, one of the activities to get there. Is that how you handle it?
Yes.
Because you were in the schools though for a little while, right?
Yeah, I did when I first got there. Yeah, I worked in the preschool groups and I've worked with school age kids. I've worked with school age kids too, and did when I worked in a pediatric clinic, I did that as well. Songs are only a tool to use, and the goal, I embed like speech and language techniques I use, like repetition or exaggerating and extending the sounds to help a child with the pronunciation of it, or, chains of three, or focused language stimulation, where you bombard a child with a particular word in several different types of sentences or whatever. All of those techniques I embed into my songs. And I use, play schemes and books and many other tools to achieve the goal of, whatever a child's working on. But music is just one of those tools, but the goals and the techniques are embedded within the song. You just have an incredible advantage because music has a rhythmic flow. It has inflection, and it has tons of repetition that you really can't. You'd have a hard time finding a way to get that much repetition in such a short time, like a 2 or 3 minute span. So if you haven't used songs in a creative way to achieve goals, I challenge everyone to look into doing that. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've done it, my own little humble way of using songs, and I really enjoyed it. And I think the kids did too.
Yep,
I did it a lot with my kids with Down syndrome.
Oh, for sure.
For airflow and for imitation and and for final consonants. And because you sustain the vowel and then you just come out with a burst of that final consonant and everybody laughs and let's do it again.
Right.
And it's just, that's kind of how I used it.
Yeah, like my song, Put the Sound on the End. Yeah, I extend the vowel to get the kids ready for the final consonant, and then it puts it on.
Yeah.
So the technique is already in the songs. So, people have asked me, is yours a evidence-based practice, research studied program? And it's not a program, it is a tool. And that the evidence-based practice techniques are embedded within the song. So I can't study this as, yes, you should use the Talk It, Rock It program. That's just not how it works. So
yes. And I fully understand that. And I could envision, working with a really smart, sometimes you get those really smart kindergarten, first grade kids. And I worked with a lot of really smart, like 4th grade, 5th grade kids. And I did readers theater with them.
Yep.
And so on. And we would make up stuff along the way. And we would add different vocabulary words or whatever, different dialogue and, within that readers theater. But I could see using this same type of thing with my really smart kindergarten, first grade kids that are just having great difficulties developing that speech component and having them kind of making up their own songs. And I would think that because they make them up, they are like over the moon and they're going to practice them even more.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's exactly how you should use music. Even with junior high kids, if you're working on, high level stuff, if kids in a 2-minute song, can you get the point across that you're trying to do? But anyway, but to add on to what you're saying about little kids writing their own, I put instrumental tracks on, like 4 instrumental tracks on these. Like, so the new BMW, I say ba, ba, ba. So there's lots of rhythm with that. Kids can write their own. Or my Let's Eat song or my high song. Those instrumental tracks are included in my song sets for kids to write their own.
Ooh, good idea. Girl,
yep.
you've covered all the bases.
Oh, well, yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
As best I can.
Yes. Well,
yep. You did a good
job.
I'm not a great musician by any means. And I did some of the singing and speaking on these song sets, but now I can't sing anything. I talked to you about my voice has gotten quite shaky. It's actually pretty good today. So that's good.
It is good. You're doing well. You're doing well.
Good. I feel good.
That's good. That's good. Well, you sound good. Well, yeah. I'm just so thrilled that you have put all of this together. I wish that I had known about this a few years ago. I would have just jumped on it big time. I really, really would. We're kind of coming to the end here.
Yes, I see that.
And you know what? Do we have any other? Looks like we do. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, she says, you are giving us ideas that we can adapt and or resources we can buy. Thank you. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And, I mentioned to you that I might ask you a life question.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And let me just, give you the life question and then, we'll wrap up and I've got, some stuff to say here at the end. But I'm anxious to ask you this. I want to hear your answer. And all I can give you is maybe 2 minutes.
Oh,
okay.
Boy.
But I think you can probably squeeze that in.
Yep.
Okay.
I think so.
Here's a question. What do you wish you had known when you were just starting out as an SLP?
Okay. Well, first, start a 401k and don't stop. Do it now. So when you're 67, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
No, that is good advice. Actually,
yes, it is. Yeah, I wish somebody had told me that.
Yeah, you think back then, there's always time. I'll do it. Yeah, there isn't.
Write things down. If you would have told me that I had recorded 9 CD sets, written 4 books, created a blast-off board program, I would have thought you were nuts. But it all became... my students had a need and I figured out how to solve the problem. So, and I would, after every home visit, I would write things down. I'm a data queen, even taking data. I've got ditching the plus and minus. I have kind of a scoring system that I've used.
Yeah.
I'm just big time on data. I would leave a kid's house. If the kid needed a song about puppies, I'd write a song about puppies. I'm writing it down as I'm going to my next home visit. So write things down and share them with people for sure.
Yeah, write it down or talk into your phone.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. Keep notes on your phone. Yeah.
And figuring out a system. I mean, I had a high caseload. I had tons of paperwork. Paperwork just is awful. So I figured out a system, and this actually could be another podcast. I figured out 7 skills that kids need to learn. They need to be watchful, intentional, noisy, turn take, imitate, respond, initiate. So every kid, regardless of their skill, I would look at that kid and I could, after evaluations, standardized tests are one thing, but really to figure out how am I going to help this kid and help the parent know what the goals are and how we can reach those goals. So figure out, you can use my system also. You can even go to my website, sign up for my newsletter, and that will give you my We Can Talk techniques, which is kind of a spin-off of these skills that I had mentioned. Figure out a system. Mnemonic devices work for me. So, I always have these acronyms that I work with when I'm working with kids and families, and figure out your own system to make life easier in terms of paperwork, data collection, and really still being able to engage with parents and engage with kids while taking data. It's complicated. So I wish I could talk longer on that, Char, but.
Well, you know what? We do have someone here in the chat that says, please provide a data course. So hello, we'll have to, there's another one too, do your, your podcast on your data collection system. We'll have to talk about that and schedule that for you.
That probably wouldn't be an hour long, but it could be a part of how I sequentially looked at all.
I'm sure you have
students.
Enough to fill. Yeah, you've got a bunch of other ideas too. Okay. And there's other things here that I'd like to read to you. It says, thank you for the informative handout as well. And I know that this is going to be on apps, and that people are going to be listening to this on audio only. So why don't you give us give all of us your email address, if you don't mind, and then maybe you could send them the handout.
Absolutely.
Would that work?
Yes.
Okay. What's your email?
Rachel, RACHEL at talkitrockit.com. That's TALK, talkitrockit.com.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Perfect.
And you can also call me directly on the phone, 612-834-9001. That's fine too. So
that's so nice of you. Thank you for being accessible.
Yeah.
Oh, and you have some other thank yous there. So yeah.
Thanks.
Look at that chat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
That's great.
Thank you, Rachel, for digging deep into your own therapy experiences and then pulling out all of this information and putting it down and recording it for us.
You're welcome.
Your ideas and your information. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
It was pleasure. It was fun, and it wasn't scary.
Good. No, because you're talking to friends.
Yes, it was great.
Yes,
Thank
exactly.
you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, no, you're not leaving yet, girl.
Hold on. Leaving. Okay.
Yeah. You just kind of have to, sit there through this, if you don't mind.
No problem.
I do want to thank all of you for being here and for tuning in and for continuing to get the word out about the SpeechLink podcast, where you learn, definitely as you did today, practical things that you can use while you earn CEUs. And in a very few days, you'll be able to access this course through speechtherapypd.com and watch it again if you want to, or as many times as you want. And also, if you so desire, you'll be able to access the audio-only version on most of the popular podcast apps like Apple Podcast and Spotify and Podbean. And in regards to that, I really appreciate your supportive comments and your good reviews. Thank you so much. And also, if you are planning ahead, next month's SpeechLink will also be very practical. And it's going to be given by Susan Appelman, MACCC-SLP.com. And she will share with us how she successfully integrates her myofunctional techniques into her speech therapy techniques. Love it. So mark your calendar and tune in Thursday, February 23rd at 7:00 again, Eastern time. And that's going to be a really good discussion. Thank you again, Rachel. And thank you to all of you. I hope you know how much you are appreciated. Thank you for all you do for your therapy kids. And we'll see you next time.
For sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm thrilled you tuned into the Speech Link. I hope it was helpful. Just leave a quick review and subscribe to be a part of a select group that receives every episode. For CEUs, go to speechtherapypd.com. And for everything else, visit charboshart.com. There's free materials, articles, books, and my blog, Therapy Matters. Thank you for all you do. See you next time.
Thank you for joining us for today's course. To complete the course, you must log into your account and complete the quiz and the survey. If you have indicated that you are part of the ASHA registry and entered both your ASHA number and a complete mailing address in your account profile prior to course completion, we will submit earned CEUs to ASHA. Please allow 1 to 2 months from the completion date for your CEUs to reflect on your ASHA transcript. Please note that if this information is missing, we cannot submit to ASHA on your behalf. Thanks again for joining us. We hope to see you next time.